The text message came at 11:47 p.m., just as Maya was finally settling into bed after a double shift at the diner. Her sister's name flashed across the screen, and Maya's heart sank before she even read the words. She knew that tone, that desperate urgency that always meant Sophia needed something she couldn't handle herself. Emergency at work. Can't do airport pickup tomorrow. Please, Maya, he's my boss's boss. I'll lose my job. 6 a.m. Terminal 3. Name J. Morrison, I'm begging you. Maya stared at the ceiling of her tiny studio apartment, counting the water stains she'd memorized. Over 3 years of struggling to make ends meet. She had exactly 4 hours before she'd need to leave for the airport. 4 hours of sleep she desperately needed before. Another shift that would stretch her thin like butter over too much bread. But Sophia was family. Family showed up, even when showing up cost them everything they had left to give. I'll be there, she typed back, setting her alarm for 4:30 a.m. The airport was a cathedral of fluorescent lights and echoing. Footsteps when Maya arrived, clutching the handwritten sign she'd made from cardboard and a Sharpie. J. Morrison, it read in her careful block letters. She'd worn her nicest outfit, a navy dress she'd thrifted 2 years ago for a job interview that never led anywhere, and attempted to tame her wild curls into something resembling professionalism. Dark circles shadowed her eyes, despite the concealer she'd applied in the dim light of her bathroom, but she stood straight, holding her sign high as passengers began filtering through the arrivals gate. She'd expected a middle-aged executive in a designer suit, probably checking his Rolex and barking into a Bluetooth headset. What she didn't expect was the man who stopped in front of her sign, his expression somewhere between confusion and curiosity. He was younger than she'd imagined, maybe early 30s, with dark hair that looked like he'd been running, his hands through it for hours, and eyes that seemed to see right through her. Cardboard sign to something deeper. His suit was rumpled from travel, his tie loosened, and he carried his own bag despite looking like someone who could afford an entire army of assistants. I'm James Morrison, he said, his voice rough with exhaustion. But I think there's been a mistake. I wasn't expecting anyone to pick me up. Maya's stomach dropped. You're J. Morrison? From Cornerstone Technologies? Yes, but my sister Sophia works for your company. She was supposed to pick you up, but there was an emergency, and I'm filling in. I'm so sorry for any confusion, Mr. Morrison. James studied her for a long moment, and Maya felt herself being catalogued in a way that made her want to disappear. She knew what he saw, a tired woman in a dress that had seen better days, driving a car that probably wouldn't make it through another winter, pretending to be someone more put together than she actually was. Your sister didn't mention she was sending a replacement, he said slowly. She didn't know until late last night. The emergency was sudden. Maya kept her voice steady, professional even as heat crept up her neck. My car's in the lot. I can have you to your hotel in 30 minutes. Or if you'd prefer to call your own car, I completely understand. No, James interrupted, something shifting in his expression. No, I appreciate you coming out so early. Lead the way. Maya's car was a 13-year-old Honda with a passenger door that stuck in a check engine, light that had been on for so long. She'd stopped noticing it. She watched James take in the worn seats, the air freshener that couldn't quite mask the smell of French fries from her work, uniform she kept in the back, and wanted to sink through the floor. I apologize for the accommodations, she said stiffly, starting the engine with a prayer it wouldn't choose this morning to finally give up. I know it's not what you're used to. It runs. That's what matters. James settled into the passenger seat, but instead of pulling out his phone like she expected, he looked at her. Really looked at her. You work nights? The question caught her off guard. How did you... The uniform in the back, the tiredness that's more than just an early morning. I've been there. Maya nearly laughed. You been a waitress at a 24-hour diner? I've been poor, James said simply. Before Cornerstone, I worked 3 jobs to put myself through community college. One of them was night security at a hospital. I know that specific kind of tired that settles into your bones. Something in Maya's chest loosened. She pulled out of the parking lot, navigating toward the highway as dawn began to paint the sky in shades of pink and gold. Sophia didn't tell me you were normal. This time James did laugh, a real sound that filled the small car. She probably doesn't know. I try to keep a low profile. The corporate persona is exhausting. They fell into an easy conversation that surprised them both. James asked about her life, and Maya found herself telling him things she rarely shared. How she'd dropped out of college when her mother got sick. How she'd been supporting herself and helping Sophia ever since. How she had dreams of finishing her degree someday, but someday kept getting further away. She told him about the diner, about her regular customers who were more family than some of her actual relatives, about the small joys she'd learned to find in a life that often felt like treading water. In return, James opened up in a way he hadn't with anyone in years. He talked about the loneliness of success, how building a billion-dollar company had cost him almost every real relationship in his life. He spoke of board meetings where he was surrounded by people but felt utterly alone, of the weight of decisions that affected thousands of employees he'd never meet, of wondering if any of it actually mattered. "You make a difference," Maya said softly as they neared his hotel. "Sophia loves working for your company. She talks about the culture, the values, how people aren't just numbers there. That comes from the top. That comes from you." James was quiet for a long moment. "Turn left here." "But the hotel is—" "I know, turn left." Maya followed his directions, confused, until they pulled into a quiet neighborhood park just as the sun broke fully over the horizon. James got out of the car, and after a moment's hesitation, Maya followed. "I take a walk every morning I can," James explained, starting down a tree-lined path. "Helps me remember what's real. Would you join me? Just for a few minutes?" They walked in comfortable silence, watching joggers pass by, a man walking 3 small dogs that tangled around his legs, a young mother pushing a stroller while singing softly. Normal people living normal lives, finding their own kinds of extraordinary in the ordinary. "I have a confession," James finally said. There was no pickup arranged. Sophia must have taken it upon herself, maybe trying to impress someone. "I always take a cab." Maya stopped walking. "So I dragged myself out of bed for nothing?" "No," James turned to face her, earnest. "This morning, this conversation, it's the most real interaction I've had in months, maybe years. You didn't want anything from me. You didn't see a billionaire or a boss or someone who could advance your career. You just saw another person." "You are just another person," Maya said. "Money doesn't change that. Success doesn't change that. We're all just trying to get through our days, with some dignity and maybe a little kindness along the way." James smiled, a genuine expression that transformed his whole face. "How would you like a job?" Maya blinked. "Excuse me?" "I've been looking for someone to head our community outreach program. Someone who understands what it means to struggle, what it means to need help, what true kindness looks like. The pay is $85,000 a year plus benefits. You'd work with nonprofits, employee assistance programs, scholarship initiatives. You'd make a real difference." "Mr. Morrison, I don't have a degree." "You have something better. You have empathy. You have wisdom earned through hardship. You understand people." He pulled out his phone. "I'm texting my HR director right now. If you're interested, come in Monday for a formal interview." "But Maya, I'm telling you right now, the job is yours if you want it." Maya felt tears prick her eyes. "I work in a diner. I drive a car that might die tomorrow." "Why would you?" "Because you showed up. Because when your sister needed you, even though you were exhausted and probably had 100 reasons to say no, you showed up. Because you treated me like a human being when you had every reason to be intimidated or starstruck or fake. Because I've interviewed hundreds of candidates with perfect resumes and impressive credentials, and not one of them had what you have. Genuine kindness and the strength that comes from surviving hard times." The sun was fully up now, bathing the park in golden light. Somewhere nearby, a child laughed. A dog barked joyfully. Life moved forward in its messy, beautiful way. "I'll be there Monday," Maya whispered. "Thank you. Thank you for seeing me." "Thank you," James replied, "for reminding me what seeing someone actually means." As Maya drove home later, the morning light streaming through her car windows, she thought about kindness, how it was both the simplest and most revolutionary act a person could perform. She'd gone to the airport expecting nothing, offering help because it was what family did, what decent people did. She'd had no agenda, no scheme, no hope of reward. And maybe that was exactly why the universe had decided to reward her anyway. Sophia called 20 minutes later, frantic with apologies. Maya laughed and told her not to worry, that everything had worked out perfectly. She didn't mention the job offer yet. That would come later. Over coffee and excited screaming. For now, she just drove. Her old Honda running smooth as silk for once. Her heart lighter than it had been in years. Sometimes, Maya thought, the most extraordinary things happen when we're just trying to be decent. When we show up for each other without expecting anything in return. When we extend kindness to strangers and see the humanity in everyone we meet, regardless of their bank account or business card. James Morrison had needed someone to see him as simply human. Maya Chen had needed someone to see her potential beyond her circumstances. In that chance meeting at an airport, both of them had found exactly what they didn't know they were looking for. And it all started because a tired woman in a thrifted dress showed up at 6 a.m. with a cardboard sign and a generous heart, proving once again that the smallest acts of kindness can change everything.